the third presentation of the American architect who has a name identical with the name of a house by Louis Kahn, since we did mention Louis Kahn, the Esherick house, which is a famous house by Kahn. But Joseph Esherick, he was a good architect, unfortunately not very well known, even within the United States. And we'll see some of his buildings. He deserves, just like Tatlin and Islam before, further study. But this is an honest attempt to wish him as well happy birthday on his birthday. This was the man. He also taught environmental design at Berkeley. And he built a number of interesting houses. And I had some difficulties to find his works because I searched for his name, but he founded a firm, an architectural firm with 4 initials. And unfortunately, too late. It was already late when I made this discovery. Why was I not able to find his works? That's why, because the authors were actually those behind those 4 initials. And when he worked alone, I was able to find a few works. But for a good number of years, he signed his works with the name of his firm, not with his name. Anyway, he was, as you can see in this, insufficiently. I mean, the resolution is maybe not so good, or certainly not for my eyes. But you see that here was a man through those arrows, he shows a concern for what was outside of the building. The environment, as we call it, but maybe even beyond the environment, the cosmos, if I am to use the rhetorical word Buckminster Fuller used. This is a house from 1957. Here, unfortunately, I have, and I really need to apologize because there are several instances where I just entered from Wikipedia the name of the house, but then I couldn't find pictures, and this might be one of them. Yes, another one in California, 1957. Interesting, he functioned about the same time with Islam in Bangladesh. So you have here a North American architect on the West Coast. Here, fortunately, I have some pictures with the Kerry house from 1960s, and it would be perhaps interesting to compare what Islam did with what Esherick did. Not all pictures are great, I apologize, but this is a short introduction in his work. As you can see, the inside is very civilized and luminous and has variety. The windows are placed in various positions. He was actually very good at, and you see an example of one of his villas, very good at crafting his building in some kind of a dialogue with what was outside of the building, so that the building is not, monolithically and egotistically enclosed within itself, but in various ways, through verandas, through stairs, through balconies, opens towards the outside. And even in these pictures, black and white, you see his skill. So this is, I don't know, yeah, I have a few pictures here, but a terrible resolution from 1960s. A very modest architecture, and this is, I think, a quality. It's not a monumental architecture, although he was able to arrive at a certain monumentality as well, and you'll see later in the presentation. But this is for children, not tall spaces, nothing to crush the children. It's really a place for children. In this case, quite explicitly. But I think to be able to build so modestly is actually a quality. It's not a problem. Maybe that's why he's not so well known. Although you will see in some other cases, he was able even to achieve monumentality. But, but I read somewhere that the clients of Joseph Esherick were actually so-called real people. They were not Hollywood stars. They were not, magnates and great tycoons and so on. No, they were, people like me, like, so-called, normal people. I don't know if I qualify to be described a normal person, but at the level of finances, I'm very normal, to say the most. Anyway, so this is the house. I only have 2 or 3 pictures from the inside, 1963. Now these are, you could say, wait a minute, what is so normal here? Well, in the United States, if you had a little bit of money, you could have afforded to build, a house that was moderately expensive, like this one. I mean, if you compare it with the buildings of Richard Meyer, you would realize that this is not really a very, flamboyant building. Even if you might have a, I don't know, piece of furniture by Mies or by Eames, as I see on the left there, or whatever. Still, this is not obviously a house for a proletarian, but certain people, maybe from the middle class, could have afforded it in the States at that time, when the middle class still existed. But look at the building from the outside. I like it. Even here, you see some things that you say we are in Bangladesh. We have details that seem to be deficient. Vatsal, I'm waiting for your intervention now to observe some problematic details here. But exactly this thing I actually like. Although, you see, there are strange things happening here. It is as if some afterthoughts, or he was probably not very, very careful with some technical aspects, but somehow, if I look at the building in its whole, as a whole, I like it. It's also vulnerable. It's not a building. Yes, inside seems to be gloriously successful, but outside you would say, wait a minute. The building is not as self-assured as the interior might suggest. I actually like it, and I even feel tempted to compare it with a much more famous example of modern architecture, and that is Falling Water. This is a different kind of architect, an architect who was probably not so sure of himself as Mr. Wright was. But that is not necessarily a defect, I think, in the case of Esherick. I like this house. And yeah, it benefits from a dramatic sloping land and beautiful trees around it. But I don't see arrogance here. And actually, in the Falling Water, I do see arrogance. All that attempt that Frank Lloyd, wrong in that case, had to marry the fire of his building with the water of the Falling Water, and he paid the price for it. This building, yes, it accepts the human being and human life, but I don't think there is arrogance here. I don't see it. It's all something almost oriental here somehow. And the level of improvisation that some people might criticize, but I'm seduced by that level of and these spaces outside of the building that are have their importance. These transitional spaces between the house per se and what is outside, I think, make it rich as a spatial experience. I like this building.
Yeah, Dan,
Yes.
you know why this why this makes you feel like falling waters? You can go back one slide. Yeah,
No, I
one more.
didn't
Yeah,
say it
this
made
one.
me feel like falling water. That's
At
not
least
what I said.
I felt it that way, because I recently studied the falling waters plan, and the floor below that has orientation towards one side, and the floor above that is oriented uh, at right angles to it. That's what's similar in both these buildings. If you see the balcony here, that whole space extends on that side, while on the top it extends on the at a right angle to it. That's the same thing in falling waters. That's a similar thing. I don't know if I have made myself clear.
You did, but you are not right, because I know falling water very well. It's
uh,
the terrace of the bedroom of the falling water is not facing in the opposite direction. It's just that it is smaller. Then I understand what you are saying, that this terrace here, which in the case of the falling water is above the falling water, here there is no falling water, but it's a very different case. This is very small compared to what is at the falling water. And this extends actually, anyway, we are not here now to go into details about the falling water, but please look again at the falling water, and you'll see that the terraces are much wider and larger and longer at the falling water. And the one of the balcony, like here, we only have a little balcony, while in the case of the falling water, there is a large terrace that is almost unjustified, considering that it connects just with a smaller room with a low ceiling, and that is the master bedroom. I know what you are referring to, but maybe, yeah, we should look at it some other day, because as I said today, I have to leave very shortly. Okay, but I do like this building, and it's 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 a fine example of what an architect can do, who doesn't follow necessarily examples of more celebrated architects than himself. This is a house, actually, there were six, I understood. He lived there in one of them. He designed six or seven houses. And there is a film actually on, and I regret now I didn't, I don't have it now, because you could have seen other pictures. You'll only see his own house, the Sea Ranch house, which was designed by him and owned by him from 1966. Uh, Actually, I have seen more interesting pictures than these. Um, is Yeah, it's too bad that the informations I found are concentrated on this particular building. I actually liked it in conjunction with the other buildings, the other five, because it shows a concern also not beyond the privateness of this building, the publicness of its connection with the other buildings. I apologize, because I failed to address that problem in this presentation. Here you see a little bit that there are other buildings, because he actually built six, and there is here a conjunction of a togetherness of buildings. What you have is something that I would call multiplicity in unity. You do have individual buildings, but the individual buildings also connect with the other buildings without losing their individuality. And this is something not very often done, I think, in the United States, and maybe in other places as well. It's a fine cluster of buildings, and I should have had more pictures and to be able to comment appropriately on this interesting experiment. This is from 1968, an apartment building in San Francisco, in a place that heterogeneous, with a certain level of hybridity. And I think this is also interesting. Yeah, the picture is as it is, and I don't have too many pictures. But you see, it's an architecture that that is very close to being undistinguished, and then all of a sudden, He asserts his inventiveness, and I don't know, he's somewhere in between respecting the context and betraying it a little bit. And it's not an expensive building. And you have references to the past or to history, in as much as you have history here in the New World a little bit, but then you have resolutely modern gestures through these bow windows. And then again at the top, some, historicist, references. No, he was an architect, and maybe next year, if I will continue to do this, I will amplify this material because I think he deserves it. Just like Tatlin and Islam. This is I don't know if I have pictures of this one. I only have these pictures in from above. I think he began already to work with his partners, and that's why I had difficulties to find images with his work when I mentioned just his name. This is a larger house. A school in San Francisco from 1981. Again, here you see some historicist details that are not afraid to be displayed or to be shown. And then modernistic gestures, and he's not a purist, but I think he's able to negotiate between various conditions. And you see the plan. The plan itself is appealing, and he has rotations. He has straightforward configuration. As both. I don't even know. I wondered, is it the same building? Because here the brick has a different color. It also depends on the the photographer, I guess, or even the aging of the photograph. These were not digital; they were analog photographs. But you can see these were pictures taken in the context of what is called the great buildings. So he was not any architect. This is I don't know if I have pictures here. No, I don't. Another one where I don't. Sorry, I was planning to search differently, but I had no time. Bay Aquarium here. I don't know if I have now, but we arrive at an important work, the Wilster Hall at the University of California at Berkeley, and he also taught there. And this is all of a sudden we are in the field of monumental architecture, almost brutalist architecture, where the publicness of the building is what matters. And this one, you would say this must be in Bangladesh, it's not in the United States because it's not very well kept. And strangely, it belongs to one of the most famous universities in the United States, Berkeley. And they have enough money and so on, and enough good management. And still the building, look on the left, you would say this is a building that, it cannot be in the so-called developed world, if we can call that world so developed. Anyway, but in terms of architecture and expression, is expressive, all right. And I think it shows that Mr. Esherick was able to build, for the publicness of architecture convincingly. And here we have this diagram with whatever. Anyway, he deserves more study, and I don't know what the fish is doing here, and then the dollar sign and whatever. Proposal for an alternative school of architecture. I like this. I am also very interested in this, an alternative school of architecture. I still wonder what this fish here might mean. Anyway, yeah. So, you know, Mr. Islam and Mr. Esherick were born on the same day. Actually, no, as I said, Mr. Islam was born on the 25th, and I couldn't talk about him on the 25th, especially considering his family name. The Christians would have been outraged that I talk about Islam on Christmas Day, as if that would be a sin, as if the two religions didn't spring from Ibrahim or Abraham or, meaning the same root from the same source. Anyway, um, so a luminous large building, public building at Berkeley by Mr. Esherick, and we are approaching the end of this triple schematic celebration. And now we see, what do we see here? If I have, I probably don't. I do. I'm glad I do, because I would have hated myself to finish, to end this schematic introduction to the work of this architect without some pictures. This is, I mean, what I see in this picture is very convincing. It's nice and clean and logical, and there is variety. It looks like an interesting house. Too bad I don't think I have the plans, but I have other pictures. You wouldn't expect this. When you look at this, I even wonder, is it from, although I found it with the same name. Yeah. And yes, this is the same house, obviously. Maybe too much, so maybe it's too obvious that it is the same house. Lux, calme, volupté, no doubt. And yes, some people do enjoy life, and why not? You hire Mr. Esherick, who ran the Department of Environmental Architecture at Berkeley, and he would do a nice house for you, a vacation house, that is. And now, I don't think I have pictures. We are approaching, he died in 1998, so he was approaching the end of his life. Yes, I do have a picture, and I was a little bit surprised to discover this building, because it's, this kind of sloping roof you would not have expected from Esherick. Not in this very predictable way. I even wonder if it was done by him, but I found his name associated with this building. And now a community school from 1999, if I have pictures. I do, and yes, these are the last pictures of this presentation. He already signed this work together with the other three partners. There are 4 initials, E, T, H, and then a 4th one. It's fine. It's a community school, and it's not for the rich, it's not for the affluent, but there is a sense of a communal sense, if you want. Yes, it is rhythmic, it is predictably, rational, but it's still joyous because of the colors. And I wouldn't say it's an indifferent building, as, for example, the building on the left seems to be. I hope it's not by Mies. No, Mies didn't build, as far as I know, too much on the West Coast. And here it is. This is the last picture on Mr. Joseph Esherick. We wish him happy birthday too. And look, there is a playground on the top of the building, but he's not mimicking Le Corbusier with his terrace jardin. It's something else. I think he was a good architect, and he deserves more study. Thank you very much.